Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Five Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ, Raj, and Maddie. What's up, boys?
Yo.
What's happening, fellas?
Not much. Just got in from wherever I was coming from. I think Dallas or something. But rushed home, set up this new fucking mic, and it pissed the hell out of me. But we got it to work. And week 8 preview. That's what we're working on tonight. We got the game plan set for you guys. If you guys want to get in touch with us in the meantime, we're on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We are in the Fantasy Hockey Discord. And let's get into some observations, man. There were a lot. I got beat up by a couple Columbus Blue Jackets, and that feels weird. Not the one that I think Allen was at that game too. Wierenski
Yeah, he
put up
was.
a 5-game performance or a 5-point performance. Monahan's had 9 points in his last 5 games. Like just an unreal performance from a lot of these guys. Voronkov, Kent Johnson coming back in a big way, looking pretty good. Very interesting sort of pickup, but I don't know. Is there anything like? Yeah, it's a shit team, but we're seeing like Alex Wenberg went off too. Wenberg, Wierenski, shit teams can have really good fantasy hockey players, and we're seeing that here. Is there anybody else in Columbus? And you know, we've talked ad nauseum about Mikhail Granlund, but what do you guys think? Big fish, small pond. Is that something that you tend to find or hunt?
Seems like the opportunity funnels a little bit more directly to some of these players on a team where maybe the talent level isn't as deep. Like classic example might be Dallas, right? Funnels a lot wider in terms of who that could go to. But I mean, I'm just so happy for Zach Werenski. You know, he's been the talent's been there forever. It's just been injury after injury after injury. He's finally put a great start to a season together. I mean, that was a week winner performance that he put up in that game. I mean, there was a lot of points to go around, but just
Oh man,
awesome to see for that dude.
was it 15
Yeah.
goals, man?
It's really, really cool that he's doing well, and that's just his kind of luck. Though he comes back, and he comes back to this lineup, so it's gonna have to be him doing kind of everything. Like I don't think I really trust anything on Columbus. It's a great story if they can do
Yeah.
anything at all, right? Like it's kind of like when you have a little kid and they take a step or have a burp, and you're like, "Wow, that's so amazing." And you're like, it's just because they can't do anything.
He said his first word.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, since what are we, 23rd of November right now? Since the 1st of November, Columbus is like 9th or 10th in the league in goals for per game. So they've
Yeah,
been
they're
doing it for
smacking.
the only thing is with a team where you know the consistency might not be there, it's almost like an individual player. Like, am I catching the end of the heater? Did I miss it? Like, when do they start to cool down as a whole group? Because you don't think there's going to be that season long consistency.
Yeah, Columbus
think
doesn't have like a playoff run sort of vibe to them, but they're playing like it right now.
Yeah, they're gonna probably have one or maybe two of these this year where they have like, oh wow, Columbus is actually winning some games. Isn't that cool?
Should we take him seriously?
But
That
I
reminds
don't
me,
think
we're
we
a quarter
should.
we're a quarter of the way through the season. We're going to be doing the stockholders meeting coming up this Tuesday in place of Tuesday Trends. It's
Yes.
what are we doing? The quarter one. Fuck. Profits, losses. I don't know, like some corporate boardroom meeting.
Yeah, like the state of your
style.
conference.
Yeah.
We're gonna exactly.
The investors meeting, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have some fun there. We're gonna be talking about each conference, give kind of a, I don't know, like a business style presentation on each one, the forecast, the reasons that it's either not going well or going well for each team. It'll just be fun, you know.
Yeah,
PowerPoint.
whose stocks are up? Whose stocks are down?
Yeah, and we'll circle back.
Yeah.
What was it? Synergy.
Just
Synergy,
put a pin in
synergy,
that
synergy.
There'll be synergy everywhere. Breakout
Gotta get
groups.
boots on the ground,
There'll be
guys.
everything.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I hope I gotta order some gummies, and they gotta get here before then.
I live in this world, fellas. We could talk about this for.
Yeah, you're gonna have to take the lead on this one. You're gonna have to spearhead this one, okay? And you're
We're
gonna have
gonna
to
need you to
full steam
spearhead this
ahead,
one,
please.
TJ.
All right,
You'll have our
some
full
other
support.
some other good looking performances. So Jonas Korpisalo, Jeremy Swayman, oh my God, Eunice Corpusalo, Jeremy Swayman. I have to do two
Jeremy?
different J
Was that a Jeremy?
pronunciations. It was a Jeremy. That's
Nice.
his name though. Jeremy Yeaman. And Corby's playing better than Swayman. I don't know if it's the hugs per 60 is way down for these boys, but Olmark's playing like shit. Swayman. God damn.
That mic is fucking up your words, man.
Yeah, where'd you fly in from again?
Dallas, I think. I did a Memphis turn. That could have had something to do with it. That goddamn pyramid's fucking with me. Olin Zellweger is playing really well. There's a few guys in Anaheim that's doing pretty well. Not too pissed off about it, but who do you guys got as your standout performances from the week?
Yeah, Cirelli had himself, he's kind of in the middle of a 4-game goal streak, notwithstanding what they've done earlier on today. But yeah, 4 goals, 2 assists, 8 shots. Oddly enough, almost all of it at even strength. He's centering that great line 1, but he's not on that power play. So Cirelli doing his thing. Travis Sanheim, again, he was pretty impactful this afternoon in that matinee game, but he's got 6 points in his last 4, 2 goals, 4 assists. He's got that full power play share. At least he did the last 2 games leading into today. I put does it stick, but like it's Philadelphia and it's Torts. Like I'm going to go with a hard no on it sticks. So maybe just stay in the flames with Sanheim. Yeah, I don't think it's going to stick, right, TJ?
No.
And Jake Wallman, 10 points in his last 8 games as a defenseman for San Jose.
Pretty tough.
Yeah, 2 goals, 8 assists. So he's, sneaking in on the streak, but 25 shots, 11 blocks, basically all of that at even strength as well, too. He's only been getting a tiny bit of power play time. So yeah, definitely worth noting a couple of standout performances from maybe, not top line players.
Raj, you got a couple of Canucks?
I've got a couple, and they did it again tonight, both of them. I mean, the one that everybody out here has been waiting for and hoping for has been Pettersson doing something, and he's 8 points in his last 6 games. I think he got 1 tonight. Might have got 2.
I think he got 2 tonight.
Did he end up getting? So yeah, he's well over a point per game over the last 2 weeks. Well over a block per game, almost 2 blocks, over a hit per game, winning face-offs. So 3 shots a game, and that's a big deal. He was down around like 1.2 shots per game for a while, and that's like a sign of some bullshit. So it's just good. And I mean, obviously with Miller taking a leave of absence, with Brock being out, with Quinn, I don't know if you guys saw, Quinn Hughes got booted out of the game for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes in tonight.
Yeah.
So the first one ever, I think.
His first major penalty in his career, which is nuts.
There goes the Lady Bing.
Canucks were playing without Brock Besser, Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, and Thatcher Demko, and they just beat the crap out of Ottawa for most of the game. But anyways, yeah, Pettersson. I'm definitely not going with like lesser known players. I mean, Ovi, you got to mention 5 goals in 2 games and then gets his leg broken.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of bullshit is that?
For a guy that like never ever gets hurt.
Yeah. His, like, yeah, speaking of firsts, right? Like he has never had a real injury.
That's been his thing. The Russian machine never breaks, right?
Yeah.
All right, a couple of last week's streamers that we want to check in on. Logan Stankoven, that streak might have come to an end. Fabian Zetterlund also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stankoven looks so good. I wrote in the show note, he's like Pokeroo for me. So for anybody that knows the reference, yeah, man, I've owned him twice this week for the whole week. And I don't know, earlier in the season for about a week and change. And he was like, okay, I dropped him, picked him up again for this week. Great deployment, great schedule. Even through the 3 games, I have 2 games under, through 3 games, like 1 apple, 9 shots. It's not the worst, but like they played San Jose, they played Anaheim, they played Tampa today. Like there was definitely opportunity to put some points on the board. So I'm not overly ecstatic with 1 assist and 9 shots.
Yeah, my guy didn't do too much better. Fabian Zetterlund, what do you have? 1 apple, couple hits. He is on the top line, top power play, so his deployment changed a little bit. And Kiefer Sherwood, man. Raj, I am glad that you're back because there's a shit ton of Vancouver stuff that we have to talk about tonight. Like,
yes,
Sherwood's looking good. I don't know if that's just a product of everybody being out and him getting some top power play time, but that's pretty rad. And yeah, just everything going on there. Let's breeze through the injuries now. Alex Ovechkin's out, with that broken leg. His spot was taken by Ivan Miroshnichenko, and I'm really hoping I'm saying that pretty well. The thing that I have here is that I'm a little bit worried for Dylan Strome because close to half of his assists were on Ovi goals, and now he's playing with like Protas and Miroshnichenko, just a couple, young guns, and I don't know how Strome's outlook's going to look at this point, but hopefully you sold high a couple weeks ago when he first came up in trends. Connor Ingram, man, this one's fun. So there was a Reddit post, and I think, Sportsnet or TSN, somebody grabbed a hold of it. But Connor Ingram and Karol Vejmelka, their stats are just backwards, absolutely backwards. Because Vejmelka, he has 1 win, like 4 losses, and his save percentage just kicks the crap out of Connor Ingram's, and his goals allowed average kicks the crap out of Connor Ingram's. But Ingram's got all the wins, and it's just a really strange set of events, like very mirror image between the two of them. But anyway, Connor Ingram's not going to be around. He's not going to join the team, or doesn't expect Ingram to join the team during their 4-game road trip coming up. So Vejmelka has got a chance to turn that loss column into a win column. We'll see how that works out. Zachary Hyman, undisclosed, still kind of kicking around on the shelf. Freddie Anderson going to be on the shelf for a while, so Kochekov's your guy. Matthew Nyes, I'm not sure. Is he back at all? I haven't had any new news come out.
He's not playing tomorrow.
Yeah, not play Sunday versus Utah. Buccaneers reports that one. So he's still sitting. Yeah, tough look. Seth Jones, like the way that they were reporting this one, it sounded like it was going to be so much longer than 4 weeks. And for it only to be 4 weeks, that's huge. Absolutely huge. Braden Point scored 2 goals, I think, in his return. I'm not sure what he did tonight, but he's back. Some weird line combinations. I think they got Sorelli still with Kucherov on the top line.
Yeah.
Points down playing with Hagel and Gensel, I think. But yeah, they're trying to build out a top 6 a little bit. Hampus Lindholm's on IR. McAvoy's getting that top power play again. I think they even let a rookie play on power play 1 too. But that's going to be a big piece of news because we got to unpack that Boston firing. Really strange one. Matt Zuccarello, 3 to 4 weeks. I can't remember if we talked about this one. I just wanted to bring it back. Kaprizov's hurt, so
last episode we kind of touched on it a bit.
And
just with what that looks like, right? Their lineup, and they don't have a lot of parts to shuffle, right?
Yeah, it's a wild week for the Wild. That top power play is looking a little rough without Kaprizov there. Rob Tom's back in St. Louis. Tage Thompson is hopeful for Saturday. I don't know. Did he play tonight? Probably not. I think I would have heard something about that. Yeah, Zook got his nut exploded. That's crazy. I forgot that's what his lower body injury was, is that Faber just beat the piss out of his nut. P is stored in the balls.
Thompson's on IR.
Yeah, so he's not playing.
No.
Letang's back, and Jordan Eberle underwent pelvic surgery and is going to be out for 3 months. Let's get into some of these headlines because there's a lot to get into here. Jim Montgomery is fired in Boston, so now it's Joe Sacco, whatever, is the interim coach. And I'm not sure, they were just talking an extension with Montgomery. He was, weekend at Bernie's this team through the last couple of years. Like Raj, you, me, and Zach have been talking about Boston falling off for how many years now? A lot, right?
A lot of years.
And then this year during the offseason, we're like, all right, we're done talking shit on Boston. Of course, this is the year they decide to, phone it in. But what are you guys thinking? Like Montgomery was just talking extension. I feel like there's a few teams out there, and we can speculate on this if you like, but Monty, he'd look good in Pittsburgh because I think Sullivan's starting to lose his voice a little bit. I know he's got some ties with management and things like that kind of make him plot armor there, but I don't know. There's got to be a place for Montgomery somewhere.
Man, just look at what happened with the last Boston coach that had a fantastic record that front office decided to I'm telling you, man, I got very little time for Cam Neely expertise as a GM arguments. Like, this guy makes a lot of boneheaded plays, a lot of boneheaded decisions and signings. Like, the coach is not responsible for who's on the roster. Like, that's the GM in the front office. And what with Montgomery was left with was essentially they had the corpse of Marchand out there with the C, and I guess Pasternak's going to carry the whole team and a whole bunch of fourth liners. Like, Boston loves their fourth liners so much, but you can't just move them 2 lines up in the roster and expect things to just work out. Yep. And I think with the players they had there before, they got away with that so much. They didn't have to make any hard decisions. No one ever challenged them about salary because everybody wanted to stay there and win and be part of the culture. Well, now that's not there anymore. So players, they haven't had a hard salary conversation in Boston in like 5 or 6 years. And the first one they had in the offseason was Swayman here. They made a complete fool of themselves.
Yep. Fifth most expensive goalie in the league.
I don't know enough about Jim Montgomery's backstory other than what he's done in Boston. But like, he seems like a good guy, and he had some insane like 700% record. Like, some team is going to hire him. And if it's anything like the last time, maybe he gets a ring.
There you go. What do you think, Raj? What's going on in Boston?
Well, Cam Neely's a fucking idiot. So I don't know how much influence he actually has, but I mean, he just look at that Swayman comments and
that's not fucking good enough. Leave the fuck in.
Yeah, I thought that was a good time for that one. Yeah, it's super strange. I don't know what we're getting out of Sacco here. Is that his name? Flacco, Sacco? Flacco's a football guy, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, Bergeron is gone, and I think that really is the problem here. That's right. So I don't know. I think, Pasternak's going to be Pasternak, but other than that, it's not a wise move.
I have that a little bit here. Like, down in my tips of the week about Boston, like, nobody is even half point per game or better over the last 2 weeks, except for Pasternak. You got like Justin Brazeau, Trent Frederick, even Charlie McAvoy and Brad Marchand are like point per game, a half point per game over the last 2 weeks. So they're not scoring by committee. They're not scoring at all. And it's really just Pasternak. And you can see what's happening. Like, he's below point per game for the first time in a few years. And it's really starting to show. We'll see what sort of stuff interim coach does there. Ekblad on power play 1, boys.
Finally.
And get this. So that fucking cock, Paul Maurice, was like, oh, we really wanted a right-handed shot on our top power play. Like, Ekblad's not been there the
whole damn time. Yeah. I love Maurice. Like, he might be my favorite NHL coach, so I got a lot of time for him. But yeah, how could you say that when the guy's right there?
I know. So it always feels like Ekblad's their last resort, and maybe that's where they're at. Like, even today, they moved Verhaeghe off the top power play, gave Sam Bennett some time up there. So they're really trying to get something going on that power play. And I mean, if they're that desperate to put Ekblad, somebody they've purposefully kept away from the power play.
And it's wild. Years. Like, it's got to be humbling I mean, I know he's been in the league for a long time, so like what he did in his prior to NHL career is probably, less important to him. But like, this was one of a handful of guys that was like exceptionally selected as a 15-year-old to play in the O. It was like him and Johnny T and like maybe 3 or 4 other players at the time. Like, he's crazy good. And he's just turned into this awesome defensive player. And it's almost like every now and then we forget that there's probably a whole bunch of offensive upside in there too.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, he's got 3 points in his last 4 games, and all of them, except for 1, just got a power play point tonight. So good on you, Ekblad. Keep it coming, because that's what I want to see. I'm a big fan of him. Got 81%, 82% of the power play time tonight, 55% last night. It's the real deal. we'll see how it goes. I mean, they've had like Baslinkas up there, they've had Adam Boquist up there, so I don't know that they're necessarily sold on anybody. They haven't tried Forsling out yet, so there's still some options that they're gonna try, unfortunately. But yeah, some stuff going on in Florida's power play, and Sam Bennett being up there is actually kind of interesting. Verhaeghe having a bit of a down year, or a down streak, I think. But anyway, JT Miller, Raj, this is where we're going to get in. We're going to tap into some of your expertise here. The JT Miller leave of absence, Demko, every tweet that comes out that kind of centers around him feels like, oh, he's going to be playing next week. And then 3 weeks go by, and then there's another tweet. And then, So I don't know if there's anything from your work on Sekkeris and Price, if you got any insider knowledge for us, what's going on there?
Well, I wouldn't exactly say I have insider knowledge. I'm no Elliot Friedman over here, but
No, better.
yeah, I mean, the Demko one, say that first. I mean, they've been saying that for I think 7 months now that he'll be back
day-to-day for quite some time.
It's been a lot of day-to-days. Like, he's probably got the longest day-to-day almost ready. Looking good, had a good week. Get him around the group kind of situation. But I think now he is back. What is different, and I don't know if it was on national television or not, but he talked for the first time in a long time. And that's a big deal. That kind of tells me that he is actually ready to come back, because he actually came out and said, I'm ready to come back. And he said he's good, just needs to make sure he's like NHL game ready good. It was quite kind of funny. He poked fun at the Sedins in Gone Shark. He said, I was facing a bunch of shots from the Sedins and doing pretty well, but their speed isn't quite NHL speed anymore. So yeah, I think he is legit, like about a week away for Demko. Miller, when he'll be out until they get back from this road trip, then he'll rejoin the team. I'm almost certain at that point, and he'll probably be fucking badass when he gets back, because
JT Miller's just spending all his time in a rage room in some mall in Vancouver right now, just beating the piss out of microwaves and stuff.
Dude, he's just such an incredible player. Like, you call me a homer or not, but like, it's all around fantasy, like face-offs, hits, everything. In the past like 3 years, I think he's like 4th in points for centers. Like, he's incredible over the last while. Yeah, he'll be back after this road trip. Besser will be back, not next game, but the one after.
Yeah,
so
he was close to a game time decision last game today.
Yeah. So I don't think it'll be next game. I think it'll be the one after, and then so it's going to end up within a couple of games. You'll have Demko, Miller, Besser back. So everything's going to be different in Vancouver.
I'm excited to see what we get out of Demko, because it's been a long time, right? And this is not an injury we have really a precedent for. So seeing how he's going to do dealing with that, and us as fantasy managers kind of trying to navigate whether or not he's going to be the next Wyatt Johnston, not Wyatt Johnston, Rupe Hintz, that kind of like day-to-day, every single day.
Yeah.
And that's going to be tough.
I would say, legitimately, if for some reason your league has given up on Demko completely, then it is worth picking him up or getting him for a cheap trade or something. He'll be. And
really what about
good.
Lankinen? What are we doing with Lankinen, Raj?
Saying thanks for your service, sir.
Yeah, like it's
see ya.
Demko's gonna get volume. If he's healthy enough to play, then he's healthy enough to play his workload.
What do we have left here? We've got like 58 games left or something?
Yeah.
Demko will play 50 games.
Yeah, 50 out of 50.
Right? Like,
I'm worried about that, because I do think with this kind of injury that we don't have a pulse on it. So I don't know. I'm a little I'm a little cautious. I am. I had something here about LA just sucking tits with their power play, and they haven't scored a power play goal since November 9th. I wrote that yesterday, and it looks like LA scored a power play goal tonight. Paratoron in the chat here saying that Quentin Byfield had a power play goal on your bench, I imagine, Paratoron. They're 32nd in the league since November 9th. They're 29th out of 32 on the year, still running that 5-forward power play and just desperate to get something going. And I was talking to our boy Chud in the Discord, who's a Los Angeles Kings fan. I was like, please let it be Jordan Spence season, but apparently Spence has looked like dog water too. So I don't know if there's anything worth really getting going in Los Angeles. Hopefully they can turn around on their own. Alex Nylander signed a 1-year contract in Toronto. I don't know if that's just a stopgap after, Matthews gets back from his hair plug appointment in Turkey. They said it was Germany, but he was in Istanbul. Come on. Since returning from injury, John Gibson has played 4 out of 6 Anaheim games. Did he win today, boys? Does anybody have that one? I'm looking it up now. I don't know. Anyway, he won 3 of them for sure.
Yeah, did not win today, but you're right. Had won 3 prior to that. They lost 3-2 to Buffalo.
All right, 3 out of 4. That ain't so bad. I'll take it.
Bad if you're a Dostal owner.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely looks like volume is starting to shift the opposite way, the way you don't want it to go. So yeah, that's a tough look, but what are you going to do? This is a fun little exercise I had planned for us. Is Georgiev back? Is Pettersson back? Is J-Rob back? Is Wyatt Johnston back? Like, each of them have had a pretty good week. Pettersson, Rogers, we were talking about a little earlier, like all of his stats are starting to trend up to what we're used to seeing. And, you look at his body of work, last 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, this start to the season definitely looks like the outlier. This has not just been uncharacteristic of him. It's just been worrisome. And it does seem like he's finally coming back, doing the same kind of things per game and just looking better.
Yeah, like he was one of not too many people who was point per game for his first 400 games, which happened earlier this season. And he had a crap, only really like 12 games, which when it's like you've just signed a humongous top 5 in the league contract and you're playing at a 40 to 45 point pace, that's not really acceptable. But now he's like I was just saying, he's well over a point per game over like a couple of weeks now, and that's just back to normal for him. So yeah, he's back, and it's not risky to say that he's gonna be consistently back. And I mean, over the remaining 60-ish games or whatever, he's back. Like he's not gonna
Hopefully
have a
you
down
bought low.
year. Yeah.
On Georgiev, man, my trust with this guy is just razor thin. Started the season with a 4-game losing streak. He's now on a 4-game winning streak. 2 games under 900, 2 games above 930 with a 966 most recently against Washington. We know Washington's a Tommy gun. They just love to make things happen. But that was an Ovechkin-less game, if I'm not mistaken, and that probably helped.
Well, TJ, I mean, you've been hurt by Georgiev, so that makes sense. I mean, he's been what Colorado needs since November 1st. He's got a 925 at all strengths. That's like 18th in the league. Delta Fenwick save percentage is actually positive, 2.3 percentage points, 12th in the league. Goal saved above expected, positive 4.41, 14th in the league. Again, just all they need. Like, give me the median or slightly above, and don't tank us more than
Let
he
the
helped us
offense
win.
take care of it. Yep.
Yeah, literally. So if he can just keep doing that, again, he doesn't need to win the Vezina to be a fantastic goalie for fantasy purposes for us because of all the wins that Colorado can potentially give them. But I mean, just for the team, they've been grasping for consistency at that position since the drop of the puck on night one. So if he can just steady the ship a little bit, and people dropped him, right? So there's probably a lot of owners that if you've stuck with him and he hasn't spent a ton of time on IRs or things like that, like if you've stuck with holding him, I hope he goes on a bit of a run here or just continues what he's been doing over the past few weeks and reward those holders that stuck with him.
I think he's like a lot better in like a season long like rotisserie kind of situation because he can get you wins quite often, but he can get you wins with like an 857.
Yes.
That'll bear you all
twice.
around it.
He did that twice. Yeah. In these,
Right,
this
so
4-game win streak.
In a week to week situation, he can be a little scary sometimes.
Yeah.
Carolina goalies can be like that too. Eh? Like you might get the W, but it might come with like an 870 if they let in
ugly.
3 goals.
Yeah, so he's definitely, I think, from league to league, but like overall, I think he's a reasonable choice. And if wins matter a lot and percentages don't matter as much, he's a gooder.
On Wyatt Johnston and Jason Robertson, they put up one multi-point game, and people are rallying. They're having parades for these boys, and I hope, like, just for the collective happiness of everybody, that he can sort this. Both of them can sort their shits out, but I don't know. In the grand scheme of things, this is a 1-game multi-point game against San Jose. So I don't know. Let's calm down, guys.
Yeah, you're not dropping those players. I mean, again, a few people did with Wyatt Johnston early on, but most folks held on to him. Same with Robos. So, like, it's not going to be the ceiling that people have anchored themselves to with either what Robinson did a previous season ago and what Johnston seems to do in the playoffs and kind of nowhere else. But you just got to hold. Their schedule's pretty good over the next little while and definitely down the stretch. So, I mean, you're just going to have to stick with it and just expect a little bit less from those players. And, we're about to get into a few tips, but, we talked about that Discord and the very active community that we have. And, as hosts of these shows, we get a lot of listeners and a lot of Discord members that send us questions. And a lot of them tend to be about goalies. And so before we kind of move on, just really quickly, like, just so everybody that's listening or watching is aware, I'm going to share with you a list of the top 10 goalies since the 1st of November at all strengths. And this is for anybody that needs goaltending help right now, because you want to note who is not on this list. I'm going to read you from 1 to 10 on this list, and we're going to talk about a few of these guys very quickly. Number 1, Jonathan Quick. Number 2, Jake Allen. 3, Korpisalo. 4, Dustin Wolf. 5, Varlamov. 6, Stolars. 7, Decord. 8, Vejmelka. 9, Mrazek, 10, Riddick. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these 10 goalies that are literally the hottest 10 goalies in the league over that period of time that are under 50% ownership. You can pick these guys up in your league right now in a lot of cases. A couple of them are owned. You're not going to get Stolars, but you're sure as hell going to get Vejmelka. Mrazek's only 26% owned. Vejmelka 11%. Riddick 26%. He's getting all the starts. I'd say Allen, Korpisalo, Quick. You're obviously in backup roles there, so you're probably only going to get 1 out of every 3 or 1 of every 4 starts, but they're all under 20% owned. Like, guys, there's options here. We get so many questions about this. And we just need to redirect folks to like where this information is, because there's a lot of help on your wire right now if you know where to look.
Man, Jason Robertson is kind of the forward equivalent of a goalie. Georgiev even, fuck. I'm trying to find, like, is that just raw stats, or are we looking at fantasy stats too?
No, these are just raw stats. This is what these guys are doing.
And I really hope you can get your hands on Dustin Wolf there. I was seeing some of the trade offers that you were working on, and hopefully it works out for you.
He's got to cool off a bit individually. Calgary, hasn't been great, but he has been. So I need a bit of a lull in a couple of spots where I can throw out an offer that's not me giving up a player I'm really sad to lose.
So I'm looking at the top 10 fantasy goalies over the last 30 days. I'm trying to curate just since November 1st, so it lines up with yours, but 30 days is the quickest to make happen. Oh, here we go. So November 1st, I see Merzlikins just hanging outside the top 10, but yeah, a lot of the guys like Dustin Wolf is there. He's number 4 in our 5-hole leagues. Gustafson's up there, number 3, Decord, UPL, Okachikov, Logan Thompson. Yeah, a lot of random faces. Even fucking Georgiev, man.
Right. But not Shesterkin, not Hellebuck. I'm not saying these aren't great players. Of course they are. But over the last month, there's a lot of guys, and a bunch of them gettable, that have been playing a little bit better than them.
That's right. Just don't go 0G, guys. Just get your comfortable guy. I'm afraid of stubbing my toe, so I'm just gonna cut my fucking foot off. All right. Let's move on. 3 tips of the week. The guys that here we go. So that's a perfect segue, right? So it's about goalies. and if you need goalie starts, the guys that I would look for would be Montembeault or Primo. Because there are 25 back-to-backs this week. 20 of them are Friday and Saturday. So, 20 back-to-back sets. The guys that you have on your roster. I'm thinking about my roster right now. I have Binnington and Ullmark. Both of those guys are going to play Friday or Saturday. If I want to pad my stats, I'm looking at Montembeault and Primo because they have 2 back-to-backs Montreal does this week. So I'll get 2 starts out of Montembeault, 2 starts out of Primo, and that's if everything goes according to plan. They have this week there's 59 games. There's 2 real off nights. This is American Thanksgiving, so Thursday is straight up blank. Tuesday and Sunday are your off nights, so make sure you're looking at a page like the game grid that I have here, because Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday are all heavy nights. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are typically our off nights, so don't just kind of assume. Boston, this is where I'm starting to get into skaters a little bit. Boston has no point per game players over the last 7, 14, or 30 days. With the exception of Pasternak, Boston's leading scorer in 14 days is half point per game. Now, this is without tonight's game. I think somebody in the chat said that Marchand had the game winner. Justin Brazeau, Trent Frederick, Charlie McAvoy, Brad Marchand, all half point per game or worse. Montreal, on the other hand, they have Lane Hudson. He's greater than point per game in his last 14. He's got 4 in his last 5. He's under 50% rostered. Gallagher, Evans, and Anderson and Doc have 3 in their last 5, but those are guys that I trust a little bit less. I think I would have Doc at the forefront of that one. And Vancouver is actually where I'd be looking this week for streams. There are 4 opponents this week. They have a goals against per game average of 3.38, and Vancouver scores more on average than Boston or Montreal. So Vancouver's average goals for is only 0.21 less than their average goals against per game. So I think there's a little bit there where you can really make something happen, whereas Boston is scoring 2.33 goals for per game, and their average opponent is giving up 3.41. So we'll see what actually happens there, because I just don't see Boston being productive, if that makes any sense. There's just not anybody that stands out. It feels like you could really throw a dart at anybody not named Marchand or Pasternak, and you have just as much a chance to get a bunch of points as literally anybody. Is it going to be Brazeau? Is it going to be Morgan Geekie? Is it going to be we're honestly just gambling at this point. There's no real way to trend it out. Montreal, on the other hand, I do kind of like them second to Vancouver because they are scoring more than Boston by quite a bit, half goal per game, and their opponents are a little weaker than Boston by about 0.3 goals per game. So their differential looks pretty good. I think Vancouver, Montreal, then Boston would be the order in which I would order teams this week if we were looking for week-long streams.
I mean, it's hard to argue with any of that, and it definitely segues like just a pro host, TJ, right into the tip that I was going to bring up around strength of schedule. And now that we're a quarter of the way through the season, every week that goes by, the data inside strength of schedule gets more accurate. So we're 18 to 21 games for pretty much every team in the league. We're starting to get a little bit more clarity with records and with standings and where all these teams sit. So we're going to play a little game here, fellas. If I told you at the beginning of the season, Matty Damas here, we're at the beginning, puck drop, game 1, and I tell you, I can see what the standings are 20 games into the season, and I'm going to be able to tell you the bottom 3 teams in each of the 4 divisions. What's our over-under on surprises? Because I think it's probably 3.5, maybe 4.5.
I mean, I have the gift of cheating because I see your notes here.
Yeah.
The Atlantic, like, that's fucking spot on. Probably
Right.
what I would have guessed. Montreal or the Metro, a little bit surprising, but the bigger picture looks a lot more predictable.
Yeah, like
There's
I
some
honestly
really strange teams here.
I honestly see like 2 teams tops here. So listen, I'm going to read these out, and how many surprises do we have in this list? Atlantic Division, bottom 3 teams: Montreal, Ottawa, Detroit. Not a lot of surprises there. Detroit kind of snuck in last year. In the Metro, Pittsburgh, Philly, Columbus. Not a lot of surprises there. Pittsburgh, we can be really charitable and say they probably wouldn't have been dead last, but them not being a playoff team. The Central, Nashville, I think that's the obvious exception. Chicago and maybe Utah as well. They're probably considered a St. Louis in that position now. And in the Pacific, San Jose, Anaheim, and Seattle. So Seattle, again, is usually scraping around making it in. So, like, what do we got there? 2, 3 tops?
One,
I'll tell you
I
some
think
even
Nashville is the only surprise.
Big time. That's what I mean.
Big surprise, yeah.
That's wild to me. So a lot of what we thought was going to happen happened. Yeah.
Edmonton, 1 game over 500 in the Pacific. They were in the Stanley Cup last year. Colorado, 4th in their division. What are they? 4 wins ahead of Utah. So yeah, that makes sense. But still, right around 500, 571. The Metro,
pretty wild dispersion.
Yeah, the Metro is, as it always is. It's like very, how do I want to put it? Like late stage capitalism, right? Like the good teams are good and the bad teams are bad, and that's how the Metro is and always will be. And the Atlantic is kind of the same way, except Tampa, again, there are 3 games over 500 in 5th place right now, which is super weird. And Boston, for as shit as they are, they have 1 more point than Tampa, but 3 games up on them, and it's 1 overtime appearance that they have. Yeah. So Boston just feels like they should be, like, if Boston was in that bottom 3, where that would be. I feel like they belong at this point.
Watching them play and some of the stats that we just talked about, they do. But there's, these teams have earned their records. So until they show us otherwise, they're exactly where they're supposed to be. Like, there's proven talent here that we're not writing off. There's still 75% of the season left, right? We talked about Nashville and a few other teams here. But more importantly, how do we take advantage of this on a weekly basis? And the way that we do that is you go to 5holefantasyhockey.com and you click on the game grid that TJ is going to be putting up, FHFH.hockey.com. Click on the game grid and sort by off nights. So that's going to give you, obviously, who has the most optimal schedule based on the number of games played each night. But there's a lot more to that tool. And the strength of schedule data we've been talking about is built into this. Win probability for each game is built into this tool. There's a hell of a lot of code in the background behind it that TJ is personally invested in. You can probably explain this a little bit better than me. What's your elevator speech on the strength of schedule data, TJ?
God, I mean, it took me.
We're practicing for Monday.
It took me around 3 weeks to get this thing going. So it separates each team's statistics into 5-on-5, penalty kill, and power play. And 5-on-5 is kind of just a layman's term for even strength. So anything even strength is considered there. It takes the amount of time each team plays on the power play versus the league average time on a power play, and say, Carolina spends 20% more than league average on the power play, and they're playing a team that spends 15% more time on the penalty kill than league average. So it would average 15 and 20 and come to 17.5, and then it would say, all right, Carolina's getting 17.5 more than league average power play time on ice. And then it builds out a projected game, and you can click one of the games and it'll show you the
like a heat map.
Yeah, a heat map of projected scores. So right here, Boston and Vancouver. My model says it's going to be a 3-2 win. There's a 6% probability of that happening. I don't know if it doesn't look like you guys can see the tooltip there, but it says Boston 2 goals, Vancouver 3 goals, probability 5.83. So it takes a bunch of stats, how many shots for per game a team is getting, how many high danger chances, how good they are on the power play, and then compares that against their opponent. Like, how many shots do they give up? How many high danger chances do they give up? How many this, that, the other thing? So it builds this like projected game. And it's like some teams are just absolutely dominant. As you start to expand the game grid a little bit here, it shows you like Vancouver supposed to have a 66% chance of beating Boston next week. 64% chance of beating Pittsburgh. And it looks, so what happens there is it gets tough to explain. It's really in depth. So every cell here down the middle is 0, 0, like a tie, 0, 0, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, so on, all the way down to 10. A 10 to 10 game has a 0.0 probability right now. So it's working. But it takes all the cells that are ties, adds up that probability, divides it in half, gives it to each team, and then takes all of Vancouver's cells, which are over here, every cell in which Vancouver wins a game, and gives them their odds, and then Pittsburgh the other way too.
So I mean,
this is a
cool as
long
shit.
elevator, dude.
I was gonna say we got to tighten up your pitch big time,
Yeah.
but we got some time between now and Monday. But that's what I'm talking about. Like this isn't about. We talk about streaming all the time, and I think it's very easy to go to just schedules, maximize number of games, and we're not saying that's a bad strategy, but there's a lot more you can do with that. When you start to include targeting best matchups, looking for weak opponents, sorting by not just who's playing the number of games, like you're going to stop chasing that golden stream in terms of the perfect number of games, and you might just end up taking slightly lower deployment or maybe one less game, but in a far more preferable position.
Last week
awesome
was a perfect example. Like Utah had, quote unquote perfect schedule, or the best schedule for last week. But who are you going to stream from Utah? What kind of offense are you actually going to get from Utah? So here, like if you sort by score, it even has Winnipeg ahead of Boston. That's just straight up because Winnipeg has more options. They score more goals, even though you're losing one off night. So it does take those things into consideration. Like, how plausible is it for us to win a game using somebody from Winnipeg, only getting one game, or getting 2 games out of somebody from Boston? Like, the likelihood of you getting more points out of one game of somebody from Winnipeg is higher than it is out of 2 games from somebody from Boston, as they're playing right now. You're not getting a Pasternak on the waiver wire. You're not getting Brad Marchand. So that's where the dart throw starts to come into it. Is it going to be Brazeau? Is it going to be Frederick? Is it going to be Kastelik? Who are you throwing at the dart at for an entire week-long hold? So it does take that into consideration, which I think is a unique tool in the fantasy space. Like, a lot of people sort by off nights and things. So I like it this way. It's my ball, and I'm taking it home.
Yeah, it's a great.
Raj, what's your tip of the week, bud?
Well, it kind of ties into what both of you guys are saying. It goes along the lines of like strength of schedule. But also kind of one thing I've always said when I get called on a little bit, maybe because I have a whole room full of Canucks stuff behind me.
What's your favorite team?
But I tend to think of that as not necessarily something you should avoid. Like, everybody always does tell you, don't let your emotions, let you draft your favorite player in the first round just because it's your favorite player or whatever. And that's for sure True, but one thing you can do is you tend to also know a lot more inside information about your favorite team. So, like, we're talking about strength of schedule, and that's something that comes up for Vancouver this week. They're basically playing bullshit teams with bad goalies and bad defense, um, on top of a number of other things. So you can use that kind of information for, especially for streamers, right? Where like, I mean, the guy that's just the most obvious thing. I'm going to bring this up. I don't know if it'll screw up our format here, TJ, but if I bring this up, this is just Kiefer Sherwood in the last 5 games.
It looks like
And I've been calling
Quinn Hughes' season stats.
I've been calling for this guy as an actual serious fantasy guy to consider because Brock's out, all these different things, but he's getting shots and he fills a role that's like Alex Burrows used to when the Sedins were here. And look at his time on ice over that period. 12 minutes, 15, 17, and tonight was 20 minutes. And I don't care what fantasy league you're in and what the settings are. These stats are crazy. Back-to-back 10-hit games. He had 7 shots last game.
It's unreal.
And goals in 3. So that's the kind of thing where that seems like, oh, it's just, calling for this dark horse kind of guy. But it's because he's playing with Pettersson, and Pettersson's about to make a big bounce back, and you can see like his time on ice is 20 minutes a night now. So use that inside information that you've got, and when you we've already talked about strength of schedule, so you mix those kinds of things in. Opportunity that might only be for, like, I don't count on Kiefer Sherwood going goal per game and 10 hits per game for the next 60 games. But maybe probably solid for the next few games while they're playing bullshit opponents and their huge minute guys are out. So
that's all we need.
Yeah.
It's 10 hits a game for the next week. And I think we could get it, man. Like, I hope that they keep Sherwood up with Pettersson even after things start to get healthy. He seems to really thrive, just being in an elevated role, and I love what he's bringing to the fantasy landscape right now. All right, we'll get into the best schedules. We'll start to get into the waiver wire and cruise through the rest of this episode here. The games played leaders, there's a fuck ton of them, guys. So what I want to do is I want to say every team except for Utah, Chicago, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Columbus, Toronto, and Edmonton. Those, 8 teams are playing less than 4 games. Everybody else, 24 teams, 22 teams, math, 24, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. 24 teams are playing 4 games. It's a heavy week, and which is weird because Thursday is completely missing from it in like 59 games. I think that's 10 more games than we had last week. No, they're all defaulted out. But 4 games, 4 off nights. We don't really have any big off night leaders until we get into Vancouver, Boston, and Montreal, which is kind of where we started off this episode. But Boston, I'm not sure where we're going to go with them. Big question marks in terms of streamer value. 3 games, 2 off nights. I don't think we have any of those. Those 3 teams are the only ones that have 3 off nights. The easiest schedules. I really like Vancouver from an opponent standpoint, from a volume of games played, from a volume of off nights. They have Boston, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Detroit. Those are 4 teams at the bottom of the barrel. Boston and Pittsburgh are struggling with goaltending, struggling with identity. Buffalo is just Buffalo, and Detroit, you have to get past Alex Lyon and Cam Talbot, who are standing on their head, but you can that could be a lucrative stream. Ottawa's got Calgary, San Jose, Los Angeles, and Anaheim. I like all those games. Los Angeles kind of on the fence for me. The Rangers, I mean, they're punching down all year, but they got St. Louis, Carolina, Philly, and Montreal. So the Carolina game is going to be either a bloodbath or a 1-0 game. Vegas, Philly, Colorado, Winnipeg, and Utah. So Colorado, Winnipeg, Winnipeg will probably be low scoring, but Colorado depends who's in net and how they're feeling that night. Philadelphia and Utah, those are going to be gimme games. Seattle, doubleheader versus Anaheim, doubleheader versus San Jose. That's pretty good. The worst schedules, you got Toronto and Edmonton. They're playing 2 games apiece. I tiered these up, and I want to know where you guys stand with this. So this was my take on it in terms of best schedules overall. Vancouver, Boston, Montreal, 4 games, 2 off nights. That's tier 1. Tier 2, I think if I was doing it with my heart instead of my head, I'd probably have Winnipeg in tier 1 over Boston. But Winnipeg's in my tier 2, Ottawa, Dallas, Detroit, right there with them. And tier 3, the Rangers, Seattle, Vegas, and Anaheim. Any discrepancies for you guys?
No, not really based on the format of the schedule we were looking at there. We always say just go check, because if for some reason, Wednesday 15 games, Friday 14 games, those days are write-offs. But Saturday's 12, there's a faint hope there. Monday's 11. So if for some reason you can get one of these least heavy nights in and you can toggle those on and off in the tool, that might make your decision for you. But based on what we're looking at there, I mean, you almost have to rely on strength of schedule. Everybody plays on every heavy night. I think we'll move into some drop candidates, fellas?
Oh man, I was muted that whole time.
I was gonna say I couldn't hear you, and I was
talking so much. Yeah.
Was it fire?
No, I mean, nobody missed out on anything. But I was getting into the back-to-back goalie streams. Something I brought up in the tip of the week. Monday, Tuesday, there are none. Tuesday, Wednesday, we got Vancouver, Boston, and Montreal. Our 4-game 2-week off or 2 off-night guys. Vancouver sees Boston and Pittsburgh. Do you think Demko makes an appearance for that one, Raj? Are we starting to think about 3 goalies? Is Shilovs versus Pittsburgh an actual stream worth talking about? Boston, Vancouver, New York Islanders. I don't know how I like either of their goalies right now. And Montreal, I think with their schedule for the full week, I don't mind. Even a Montembeault, he's relatively available.
Maybe the Utah start, Columbus. Yeah. We were just talking about they're firing.
Yeah, they're firing.
All right, that Pittsburgh start for Vancouver as well, depending on who it is. Shilov's got a kind of a head scratcher start in the middle of the week. I don't know, Raj, if there's anything more on that, but it seemed like the games were spaced out this week, that Lankinen would kind of get the run like he has been, and all of a sudden he just didn't get the one midweek game. So it might factor into that Tuesday, Wednesday split.
I think Demko is on this road trip with the team. So I don't know if all 3 are on the trip. I haven't looked.
Yeah, me neither, actually.
The only thing that I've heard is that Demko will be back by the end of the month, and that is schedule-wise Pittsburgh or Buffalo, right? Unless that means Detroit, but he could get a start. I don't know if he's on the trip. I don't know why he would go on the trip when they have a back-to-back and not play one of the games.
That's such a good way to get your feet wet too against these kind of bottom feeder teams, right? Like Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Detroit, somewhere.
Yeah. I would honestly, just with no good reason, I would predict Pittsburgh, to be honest.
And that could be, that's not, just talking about their offense right now, but, Pittsburgh's not a slouch when it comes to their shooters. You still got Crosby. So,
yep. It's kind of gross. You might say you want the Boston game there over the Pittsburgh game. But
yeah,
that's where we are right now.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's no back-to-backs. Obviously, Thursday is blank. Friday, Saturday, there's 20. So just look at the game grid and have at it. Saturday, Sunday, you got Ottawa versus LA and Anaheim. I think I'd like Forsberg versus Anaheim if that's the way it goes out. Montreal versus the New York Rangers and Boston. I'd imagine Montembeault gets trot out against the Rangers. That's going to be a tough look. So I don't know. Like, do you switch from Montembeault to the Primo later on in the week just so you can get, either Utah, Columbus. I wonder if Montembeault gets Columbus too, because they are a bit more of the intimidating one right now.
I think it depends on what you're looking for, right? Like you could argue if you're in a volume sort of a heavy league, like maybe you want the 45 shots that the Rangers are probably going to throw at the net against Montreal. You never know, right? On any given night. Boston, I think there's a higher propensity for the team to actually win the game.
Oh, sorry. My wife is hammered drunk in Florida right now, texting me all sorts of crazy shit. Yeah.
It's a PG show, right?
Yeah, it's PG.
Yeah.
There's no pictures, unfortunately, but yeah, she's hammered. She even smoked a cigarette tonight. That's how drunk she is.
Like
all right,
dark drunk.
A Virginia Slim. Yeah. Let's get into some drop candidates, Maddie. Who do you got?
Yeah, you know what? This is kind of quickly becoming one of my favorite segments that we do each week. So, fellas, you can freshen the drinks if you need here. But like, we have a few teams here that had great schedules last week, and moving into this week, maybe not so much. But we're going to start with the Sunday game that's going to be going on actually as of recording tonight on Saturday, tomorrow, against Utah and Toronto, the only game in the league. So for our Utah players, the streamers you've been holding on, they play that Sunday game, but then they're also one of 4 teams that play the 2 Tuesday night games next week, very coveted off night games. So your Utah streamers, you are probably, I would say probably, you are holding them because the only reason you picked them up was probably for that Sunday game as well. So you're going to definitely hold them through Monday and get that Tuesday start. They play against Montreal, and then you're probably going to drop most of them. The Kessel Rings, the Coolies, Hayton, McBain, Krause, Kerfoot, Maselli, even Schmaltz. Like, hard to argue you're going to keep these players on your team when they literally aren't going to probably touch the ice for 5 to 6 days. Toronto, same thing. Like, they play on the Sunday, but they only have 2 games next week, Wednesday, Saturday, both really heavy nights, 15 games, 12 games. So it is a perfect storm actually for drops because you're probably going really deep into the roster for that Sunday stream. So like Robertson, Minton, Grabankin, the forecheck, back check, paycheck kid. And now again, I do have a name. Like, are we ready to maybe, even though he might not play on your roster, McMahon's been doing some pretty nice things over the last handful of games. I'm maybe not quite ready to cut bait on Bobby McMahon, but I mean, a lot of these Toronto decisions got made for you too. I mean, in terms of injuries, Pacioretty injured, Domi injured, Nyes, Matthews, OEL was sick on Friday. Like, some of these decisions you just got to kind of punt a little bit until they get healthy enough for you to have to drop them. But I'd say McMahon's probably the only player there that you might want to consider holding.
I think the only situation where I wouldn't drop McMahon is if like you have somebody else that you can stream out. Like, if McMahon's bottom of your roster, then yeah, you got to make that move because
That's right.
2 games, 0 off nights. Like,
He's not playing for you. Oh,
he's not playing. So yeah, you can't just hold a guy because he's playing good last week and then hope that he's going to be playing good in 2 weeks when, Matthews back and the lineup starts to look normal.
Yeah, it's ironically so easy to drop these guys when they have a Stankoven type week and they give you basically nothing. And it's like, all right, well, on to the next. But, you stream them for the week. Their schedule is hot garbage the following week. Like, you hope that it's a tough decision where they put up some production, but click that drop button. Like, they will be there. Anaheim, so they had 3 off nights last week, but their last game was yesterday on Friday. So they don't play Saturday, Sunday of the final of week 7. And then into week 8, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, all heavy nights. They play their last game on Sunday, which is an off night, to end the week. But that's what, like 9 days in between the last time that they played for you. So again, if you're holding a streamer for Anaheim, they're probably not playing for you for upwards of 8 days. So hard to find a scenario where it's worth it. In terms of drops, it's really the whole team because like only Vetrano and Dostal are owned. So, I mean, punt them all back to the waiver wire. They'll be exactly where you found them when you get in the next time. Edmonton, we talked about a little bit earlier. So they played this week, Thursday, Saturday, and then all the way through to playing only on Friday and Saturday, both heavy nights. Absolutely not worth the dead roster spot. Even for somebody like Podkolzin, who's playing up with McDavid and Draisaitl for a little bit, Henrique, Skinner, Picard, but like even Podkolzin, is he going to play for you on Friday of this week? Is he going to play for you on Saturday of this week? If the answer to both of those questions is no, you have to drop that player. And the last team that's on here is San Jose. So this one was interesting because this to me is the perfect example of like a schedule mirage. They played 4 games last week. They played 4 games this week. Looking from the top down, like you got to stream San Jose players. And they did have a good beginning of this week in terms of streaming and off nights. But from the latter half of this week all the way through next week, they play 4 games. None of them are off nights. Their last off night game was Wednesday, like 4 days before this recording. So any stream that you added from San Jose has to be dropped. If they're giving you 0 games, you're keeping Granlund, you're probably keeping Wallman, you're probably keeping Celebrini. Are you keeping your Zetterlund shares, TJ, or no?
Nah, he's my streamer spot.
Yeah.
I don't get attached.
Same thing. All these guys are streamers. So hopefully they gave you something, but you just absolutely cannot hold a player that's not going to play on your roster if they're anything but a core player.
That's going to bring us into the what do you got,
I'm just
Raj?
going to throw in, I just want to throw in Vasily Podkolzin did score a goal tonight.
Yeah, like I said, which is good. We want this to be a hard decision, right? It's just...
It is his first goal.
Which, I mean, that's great. And it might have helped the week, right? Which is good. But, like, I don't know.
Week's over.
There'll be people holding marginal Oilers.
1 goal.
All right, that's going to bring us into the week-long ads. We're going to talk the main teams to be streaming from. Vancouver leading us off. Raj, you're going to get some airtime on this one, but there are a bunch of guys that are available at this point, and there are 2 for me that really lead the way. I don't think it's going to be any surprise that Sherwood is one of those 2, but I'm curious. I'm going to leave the other one a mystery for now. But there's Sherwood, there's DeBrusk, there's Joshua, there's Garland, there's Suter. And, I feel like there are some bangs to be had outside of just Sherwood in Vancouver too. But I wonder, Raj, first off, how do you rank these guys?
Well, I mean, I've been talking about Sherwood all year, and especially recently. So I just pulled up that little last 5 games or whatever. He's my number 1. Dual wing eligibility is cool, but I like the order that you've got in the notes here. DeBrusk second. I mean, he got 2 goals tonight and an assist, and he leans heavy on hits as well. So he's a guy. But that's the line. It's Pettersson, Sherwood, and DeBrusk is the line, right? So that's why all of their numbers are starting to come up. They finally found a mix. Whether that's just Pettersson's good and dragging everyone along, I don't think so, because DeBrusk and Sherwood are like energy guys themselves, and I think that's going to stay the same. I mean, especially given Tocchet, if he has any way that he can say like any justification for keeping a guy like Sherwood in the top 6, that's the kind of thing Tocchet wants to do. He wants the bangers to have legitimate time, and right now Sherwood's time is legitimately seeming to work out for all 3 of those guys. So I think it's actually as crazy as it sounds, like from a 4th liner in Nashville to basically a top liner in Vancouver. I think Sherwood's actually good. DeBrusk, I think, is actually going to prove to be pretty good over the next month or so. I think he'll have a stretch and then maybe die off again, but I think he'll have a good run over the next few weeks. I think Joshua is going to be a letdown for a lot of people. He was such a fun story last year. The hits, the goals, and then he had the cancer that he just came back from, which is always a feel-good thing, and it's amazing. But I think the thing is, he's just not actually that great. So I think everyone wants him to come back and just be like, and he came back and had this incredible comeback. But I think he's going to come back and just be a solid third, fourth line guy. And people are going to be a little sad about it. But really, that's what he is. So I don't think anyone should really, unless you need a hits plug or something like that, really don't think you should worry about Joshua. And Garland is still unowned overall. I think he's about 25-30%, somewhere in between there. And Garland is he's having a great year, and he's going to get a lot of minutes and a lot of quality minutes for the foreseeable future. So I think Garland is, and he's a right wing, which tends to be a challenge sometimes to find good right wingers. So I think Garland is another good choice. And for this whole week coming up, I think that would be, overall, any of those guys are good options. But I think Joshua is unfortunately like a guy I'm just not really putting my time into.
Maddie, what about you, man? What's your ranking here?
Yeah, I think for posterity's sake, I'm going to stick with what we have going on here. I think you guys went over that pretty well and pretty deep. And I mean, the great thing is there's options for whatever your scoring format is for Vancouver. So not only do you get the great schedule and the optimal opponents, but if you need bangs, you can stream them. If you need some upside or PP exposure, you can stream it. And you don't always get those options when these teams come up.
I like Garland. He's the other one. So for me, it's Sherwood and Garland. I feel like Sherwood's kind of a layup this week, and our layups, Maddie, they have not been like every week. We feel like we have a layup, and it hasn't been working. So I think I'm going to go curveball and just go Garland for my stream of the week. He's going to be my guy.
Sorry, I would throw in just as a gut take, if you want a long shot defenseman, I think Brandstrom has a shot to get some points next week.
There it is. That was what was it, Dominic Kubalik a few years ago, where Zach just randomly texted you at 4 a.m. or something. So we got another gut take coming in.
Yeah.
All right, Boston, this one's tough, man. Like, there's not much going on. The only thing that they do have going for them is that some of their name value is like the high stock names are starting to dip below 50%. So you're looking at Elias Lindholm under 50, and they really don't have anything going for them as a team, as streamable players. It's just as hard to find anything. So I don't know. For me, if I am going Boston, I'm going for bangs. And I'm looking at guys like Zadorov, Kastelik. You could even go Kastelik in hopes that he winds up with another just kind of weird week. But Maddie, we'll kick it back to you on this one, man. Do you have any ranking in terms of like how you'd sort these guys out in Boston? Would you even look there, regardless of schedule?
I mean, I like the schedule enough that if a Lindholm is available and you're in a position in the standings to actually take a swing on that, and if it whiffs, you're not going to be buried. It's hard to argue with the deployment. That being said, Zacha's 11% owned. He doesn't do a lot when he's out there. I think we've had a few times where he's been streamed this year and really not did much. But I mean, he's line one, power play one, plays with Pasta. He's on the ice for 20 minutes. Like, he's got no points in his last 4. So if nothing else, he's, you haven't eaten those 4 donuts in a row. So maybe he gets something going. To your point, I like to usually look to Boston for some combination of bangs and production. So a guy like Frederick to me is a banger with benefits. He's got the deployment, the dual eligibility. you're streaming them for hits and maybe a shot or two a game, but like every now and then these guys score a couple goals in a week or get a goal in an apple and on top of 15 hits or something. So Boston loves these guys. 13 minutes a night, lunch pail guys, go out and hit everything that moves. Like, that's perfect. They'll make him captain. But yeah, I don't know, somebody like a Frederick for me. But I think if you stream Lindholm or Zaka, you can't take a victory lap in week 8. I hope we get some production, but these guys have been hot garbage for basically the entire season. So if you're streaming them for the purposes of power play points and, really padding those types of count stats, I might look elsewhere.
Good luck. What about you, Raj? Do you think we get a breath of fresh air with a new voice in the locker room, new coach, any of that? Like sometimes we get a wind out of a team with a new coach.
It happens a lot. I mean, see Bruce Boudreau, see Rick Tocchet, see, it happens a lot in our town anyways. But I don't know. The team isn't good. I'm just looking at
kind of like the TLDR of this Boston segment.
I'm just looking. I just sorted by the last 2 weeks, and there's Pasternak, 5 points in the last 6 games, underperforming. For
that
him.
is all.
That's it.
And then I'm scrolling down by points, and there's none. There's just no points.
Yeah, dude, they scored 11 goals in the last 6 games. Like, there's nothing there. Even if one player got 75% of that over the last couple of weeks, they're probably not even making our hot streak.
Pasternak has more points than the rest of his line combined over the last 10 games.
I'm not
so tough.
I'm not betting on the entire team turning it around. I mean, I'll wait until they do, and I'm sure there'll be lots of guys left to pick up at that point. But
that's what we said.
I'm not waiting for the turnaround right now. That's for sure.
I do not need to be on the first train car out of the Boston station, right? There's some teams I do. Yeah, not that team.
When it happens, I don't think like Lindholm is going to be challenging any kind of like hot streak, even when it all starts going right. Then he'll be a solid 70-point pace for a bit and then drop off. That'll be it.
Montreal is the next team on the list in terms of the teams that we're going to deep dive here. Again, this is a team that's not really producing a lot of offense. You could look at Elaine Hudson. In a week like this where there's a lot of heavy nights, I tend to find myself with a lot of open D spots. So I think kind of leaning or prioritizing D as your streamer could be a good option. And Hudson's one of those guys that I look at. Like you're not finding power play time in Vancouver on the waiver wire. You're not finding power play time in Boston on the waiver wire. And if you do, it's probably not going to be productive. Whereas here you have Lane Hudson, who is intermittently kind of running power play 1. He's got 4 points in his last 5 games, 2 power play points. I feel like the conversation kind of starts and ends with Hudson for me in Montreal. I could hear you out on a Kirby Dach. He's got 3 points in his last 5. Guys like Jake Evans, Gallagher, I don't know. Gallagher feels kind of yucky, like 5 years too late. And I don't know. Like, I'd love for him to be fun again. He was such a good player to root for, but it feels like, I don't know. What do you think, Manny?
Well, I think the opponents that they're playing this week, outside of the Rangers, all look pretty good. So, to your point, like there's a bit there that we can look at. They through this year haven't really been torching the league in terms of goals for, but like over the last few weeks, they are on a bit of a shooting percentage heater, which is for us perfect because we're looking to stream these guys. So, like we said, we want as much unsustainable production as we can leading into the very short period of time we're actually going to own them. So, somebody like a Gallagher, I don't want to own him a lot, but like he's got 2 goals on 8 shots. Evans has got 2 goals on 4 shots. Like Hudson's fun because it actually might make me want to tune into the game and watch it just because he does some pretty unreal things with the puck. He's playing a lot. Like I know it's second pair PP2, but he's playing over 22 minutes a night, some nights over 27. Like I like the priority there in terms of maybe streaming that. You're probably going to get all those games into as a defenseman, depending. You might have a bit more flexibility than you might have with some of the forwards.
Anybody in Montreal you're looking at, Raj? He's muted. He did say no and shook his head pretty fervently.
We're all practicing
No.
for the office one, man. Everybody's talking while we're muted. We need a breakout group.
Fervent no.
All right, we're going to get into the tier 2 stream teams here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to list out these guys. You can just real quick give me like how you rank them. Ottawa, I think this one's a bit of a layup, which could be dangerous because it's one of our layups. But Norris, Grigg, Gaudette, McEwen, Pinto. Maddie, how you ranking these guys?
Definitely Josh Norris, clear number one if he's available in your
bullet.
league. Yeah, 32% owned. So 2/3 of leagues he's there. He's shooting, he's scoring, he's hitting, he's blocking, like he's doing everything. Go at him. If he's there, go get him. He's got a great schedule next week. He's the priority ad, not only for Ottawa, but he's my priority ad for the week in terms of a stream. But he's definitely up there in terms of if he's out there, go get him. I'd look at Pinto after that, and then Greig, Gaudette. I know McEwen hits, but so does Norris, and Norris does a lot of other great things. So I'd be sticking with that.
He's going to be a hot button stream on Sunday too. That's their one off night. So if you can get in on the ground floor on Norris before Sunday, because like if I don't have room for centers, which could be a very real possibility. You might not be able to get him in for those other 3 games, but just having him on your team in your back pocket for Sunday, that could be a big thing. Raj, how do you rank these guys?
Well, I mean, Norris, I drafted Norris and I haven't dropped him yet. I mean, he's great. His only issue ever has been injury. And his time on ice is great. So yeah, I mean, he's a for sure. But after that, I do like Greig actually. Greig.
Yeah. How did he wind up after that Hughes hit? Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, he came back right away. But I like the dual eligibility. He's got time on ice. Like Adam Gaudette, we let him go from Vancouver, the hockey god. He's got a crazy amount of goals in very little time. Like very little time. But I don't think it's a real thing. And the 1% is a solid amount for him. So I'd go Norris, I go Greig, then Pinto. And
this one,
Zach McEwen always for fights though.
This one starts and ends with Norris for me. I think I might go there for bangs, but outside that, Winnipeg does look pretty enticing in terms of offense, just based on what they've been able to put together as a team. Velarde pushing 50%, he's up to 51, so he's kind of out of our streamer options. But we're looking at Lowry, Perfetti, Nemesnikov, Niederreiter, who's starting to flirt with 50% as well. Raj, we'll bounce it back to you on this one. How do you rank these guys in terms of streams?
Well, categories has a lot to do with it. Lowry can be great.
There's a lot of hits to be had here. I mean, Barron, Pionk, Lowry, Niederreiter. Niederreiter leads the team in hits over the last 2 weeks.
For sure. I do. Again, a little bit of a gut take, a little throwback for Zach. Cole Perfetti. I just feel like he is. He's due. He's been doing okay. So I kind of like Perfetti. Again, as a gut take, to perform a little bit better than he should over the next little while. But Winnipeg is they're how do you say, the best start in history, I suppose. But I think they got destroyed again tonight. And I think you're gonna see them play some like 500 hockey for a while, if I'm again going just off of a hunch, but that start was way too hot, right? Like things regressing to the mean means if they're playing like 500 hockey for a while, then they're still at a great winning percentage. So I think you're going to see quite a huge drop off in Winnipeg because it seems like everyone is sort of playing above and beyond what they could in the best possible situation. So I kind of think it's all going to fall apart here pretty quick.
I'm hearing in the chat that Kochetkov is hurt, on top of, Dylan Sandberg, who segues from Winnipeg, but then Logan Cooley as well. So Kochetkov, we'll see what happens with him. Didn't look good. Took a head hit from Sean Walker in the game tonight. Left the game, didn't come back. Maddie, how do you rank these guys in Winnipeg, man?
I think I'm sticking mostly with that. I would go with Nino because he covers a lot of cats, and so I think regardless of format, he's going to give you something. He's got good eligibility. I think I'm on the Perfetti train there as well too. I mean, he hasn't. There's certainly been a lot of other names we've been talking about. It feels like we've been talking about Winnipeg every single week on this show. But if nothing else, I want dual eligibility when I'm talking about a streamer because we're trying to fit this player in. So as much as I love Adam Lowry as a player, he's their captain. C only, 23% for ownership is great, but are you actually going to get him in? Yeah. So I feel eligibility matters that much more when you're talking about fitting a player in for streaming. So in this case, I'd go Nino, then Perfetti, and then Nemesnikov.
All right, we're talking about Dallas. This is where our boy Stankoven's coming back into the mix.
Stanky.
Yes, sir. And I think we could throw like Tyler Seguin in there if he's coming back. Maverick Bourque could start to play. But just in terms of like production, it really does start to drop off after Mason Marchment, which is just such a wild thing to say. Matt Duchene's doing some things as well, but the guys that are under 50% that are worth talking about is Stankoven, Esa Lindell, I guess, if you want like just middling hits. And it really doesn't get any better from there. Like,
yeah, their riffs are shit.
Yeah, they're not doing like nobody plays enough time to really accumulate anything. But yeah,
they're all owned, like for the most part. Most of their skaters, like what do we say, 7 skaters here are over 60% owned. So the interesting name on this list to me is Bourque because he's playing between Stankoven and I want to say Ben, or it might actually be Seguin. But he's playing up there with them. So you might not, we're seeing 47%. Stankoven was a great streamer last week, so he's probably owned going into this coming week, and Seguin might be as well at 43%. So you could take worse swings than on Mav Bourque if that's who he's playing with at even strength.
This feels like another, like where Boston was a dart throw, this feels like a dart throw too. They've got Robertson, Hintz, and Johnston all together. So like the cold line is actually producing right now. So, you never know who's going to score in Dallas, which is just so weird. What a good team, but man, fantasy sucks. Detroit is going to be actually, Raj, I want to get your pulse on Dallas. How do you rank those players there?
Well, I'm not a big fan of Dallas again, just because of the minutes. Like there is zero variation. Like it's a true 4-line team, which just stinks for fantasy. The only guy that I actually do not mind in Dallas as an option, which is barely an option, 43%, is Seguin, actually. Again, there you go. I like Seguin, the center, right wing. He's been getting some points, but again, like you're looking at guys who get not very many minutes and produce accordingly. So your high scorers are like on pace for 70 points, maybe 65 points at best.
I mean, not for nothing too. Their only off night game is on the Sunday at the very end of the week, and it's against Winnipeg, so it's not exactly a layup.
Yeah, that's a long week. Whereas like with Norris, I feel like it's justified because I like the way he looks on Sunday, but Dallas just feels that's such a gamble to start with, and then all of that pressure put on Sunday too. So Detroit's coming on next. Marco Casper is doing a little bit of stuff. Another team that's not really like offensively gifted at this point. Vladimir Tarasenko, 10% rostered, 4 assists. Simon Evanson. There's some other guys here, but let's talk about Comfer, Kopp, Casper, Tarasenko, pretty much that whole power play too. Maddie, we'll kick it off with you here, bud. But what do you think? How do you rank those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I like Tarasenko and Casper out of that mix there. Kopp usually finds a way to be stream irrelevant a few weeks in the year as well too. So maybe that's one of those weeks coming up. I mean, to your point, Detroit really doesn't score a lot of goals. They're over the last couple weeks, they're tied with Boston and Nashville at like the bottom of the league. But interestingly enough, their power play is red hot. They're like 7 for 17 over their last couple weeks. The unfortunate part for streaming is every single person on Power Play 1 is over 65% owned. So you're not going to get any of those people. So Power Play 2, like we said, Casper has been doing some things lately. He's got 3 points and they're all on the power play. 9 shots, 5 hits over his last 4. He does play at even strength on line 2 with Kane and DeBrincat. So he doesn't play with him on the power play, but he does it even strength. So if you were looking for a Detroit player, let's take a quick peek at where their off night game is. And that is Sunday at home against Vancouver. So not the worst. Vancouver hasn't really been filling the net outside of tonight. So I mean, on that list, I think it'd be Casper just because of who he skates with more often than not.
I don't know if I like anybody from this team. I think Patrick Kane's worth a just go check. He's like 65% rostered right now. So outside of that, it's for me, it's the riffs. I'd go Sherrod, Rasmussen, Edmondson. I'm in 1 points league where blocks are like worth 1 point a piece. Goals are worth 6. So it's like 6 blocks to a goal. That actually winds up being pretty lucrative.
Sherrod would be great for that.
Tier 3 streams. This is where we're going to get into it. No takes on the team. Just give me the names and rank them, and don't justify it, because these teams are pretty much bottom of the barrel. So if people are scraping at these teams, they just need to know names. They don't need to know why. The New York Rangers. That's where we're going to kick it off. They're playing St. Louis, Carolina, Philly, and Montreal. So not a bad schedule. But the guys we're looking at, I mean, this is another one that's like huge, top-heavy ownership. Trouba's under 50%. Will Cooley, Keandre Miller, Riley Smith, Braden Schneider. What do you think, Maddie? Quick fire.
I like Cooley at 33% owned. He's been scoring. He hits a ton. I like Miller to stream on D. He'll get you some riffs and maybe sneak into a few points. And then talent upside with Kako and the right wing eligibility. That might be my top 3.
Raj, what do you think, man? Anything worth talking about in New York?
Cooley and Trouba just always seems to save your day. Like if you can get him, he just always seems to get what you need, because he's always there for the obvious blocks and hits. But if you need a couple of assists, he'll get them.
Good bang floor. Always good to kind of hang your hat on if you're going that way. Anaheim, the whole team's pretty much available outside Vetrano. So let's talk Gudis, Terry, Zellweger, Carlson, McTavish, Gauthier. I mean, there's a smorgasbord here of people to stream from. For me, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, and Zellweger is like with a bullet the only guy that I'm really looking at from Anaheim right now. Raj, let's kick it back to you, man. Who do you like from Anaheim? Anybody worth talking about?
Anaheim is a team I don't want to talk about. So there's just nobody there, and I don't want to pick up someone from Anaheim and then have to pay attention to Anaheim. They're just not worth it. There's just nothing there. I would say
I should throw
disappointment
Zegras
per
into the mix
60
too.
is high.
Zegras has got a bit of he's on a hot streak.
Zegras is like he's a warm-up player. Like he looks good when the team's doing drills before the game. He looks amazing, and then once the game starts, you're not sure if he played or not. There's no one on Anaheim that I want. at all.
Matty, what do you think, man? Any ranking here?
I mean, I don't think I'd be as concise as Raj there, but I might look at Anaheim as a team where I can target a specific type of stat or category. Maybe it's Bash, maybe it's power play time on ice, because you can get a lot of these power play 1 and power play 2 players. So I don't know, like you can just go to any one of the tool sites and sort by who's getting the most power play time on ice. And if you're looking for exposure, like we just mentioned, Zellweger, half his points are on the power play, which is great. You can pick him up. Terry gets over 3 minutes a night. Carlson does the same. I think Strome's really close to that. So like you can pick your poison here. For Riffs, there's actually, a few options, with Gudis and Dumoulin and Ross Johnson. Like there's guys there. But again, I'm looking at this more like it'd be a very targeted, almost like a niche ad for like, you're not looking at them to drive offense and save your week. It's going to be, what can they just add as a little bit of extra? So maybe more towards the bangs than any sort of power play production.
Let's talk St. Louis. Braden Shen, Jake Neighbors, Justin Falk, Pavel Buchnevich, and we can even throw Dylan Holloway into the mix. Maddie, what do you think? What's your ranking on this one?
I mean, I like Braden Shen. He was going to be really close to my streamer of the week, but he's been doing pretty good things lately and gives you some dual eligibility. Neighbors close behind him. Buchnevich just snuck underneath the line at 49%, but every time I touch Buchnevich on the stream, he pokeroos me, so that is not happening this week. So I'm going Shen, Neighbors, and then Falk on the back end if you need periffs.
Raj, let me hear it about St. Louis.
I honestly like all 4 of those guys. I like that they're all.
You like
dual
St. Louis?
eligible.
You're so weird for St. Louis, man. I don't know.
Well, it's because of this reason. You can get all those guys right now. A guy like Shen is probably going to be getting a lot of power play time. He's dual eligible. He's going to get you hits. He's going to get like a couple of points probably. Neighbors. I mean, they're all good. They all do the same thing. They're all good. They all do that. Then you shouldn't bank your team or anywhere of your top like 15 players on any of these guys. But yeah, I love St. Louis for this reason, because these guys are there and they're always dual eligible because they never settle on a lineup because no one's that good at any particular position.
I feel
That's
you
a
on
great
that
point.
one, man. Vegas is kind of the same way. Like the top line keeps moving. That's our next team to talk about. I think it's Alexander Holtz on the top line right now. But let's talk about Willie Karlsson, Nicholas Waugh, Pavel Dorofiev, and there he is, Alexander Holtz. You could look at some bangs with Kolasar, White Cloud, McNabb. Matty, how do you rank these boys?
I think we're going to stay with Dorofiev, just given dual eligibility and the deployment. I like Willie Karlsson as a second option there. You can honestly toss up Waugh and Holtz for me. I mean, Holtz is a even strength option, I guess, at this particular moment on line 1. Who knows how long that stays? So, I mean, we're getting a little deep here, but I would say Dorofiev for sure. Karlsson as a second. Definitely McNabb if you're looking for periffs. I'd be hesitant to go a little bit deeper here before I'd be looking at some of the St. Louis players we were just talking about.
Raj, Vegas, what do you dig?
Yeah, I as a team, I put Vegas below St. Louis for streamers because their good guys are got, and their lower guys are just not really worth it to me. So yeah, I'm not too keen on anyone there. I mean, I do like Willie K, but then you're in a center only situation for a guy who's gonna not get you point per game kind of thing. So yeah, I'm not huge on Vegas as a pickup spot. Oddly enough.
Why don't I see
Pun
St. Louis
intended.
at all? Where's St. Louis on the fucking game grid? Tell me they're missing. That's not a bug that I feel like investigating tonight. Oh, here they are. Do they only have 3 games next week? Maybe I messed something up.
St. Louis.
Oh, it was Seattle. So we talked about St. Louis for no reason. Sorry, guys.
Whole fucking team's there too, so just go get him if you need him.
Yeah, Jared McCann's going to be pretty much the only guy you can't go out and get, and he's literally on fire right now. He's playing so well. Yeah, it's Vince Dunn at 78%, Jared McCann at 85%, Brandon Montour at 97%. Everybody else is under 20% owned, so it's another smorgasbord there. Streamer of the week, and then we'll cap it off. For me, I'm going to stick with Connor Garland. I got a good feeling about it, and that's where I'm going to stay.
I'm staying with Josh. Oh, Raj, go ahead.
Nope, Josh Norris. That is right.
Gotta do it, man. I gotta do it.
Yeah, mine's obvious. Kiefer Sherwood. I mean, schedule, positions, and he gives you a bit of everything. Kind of gives you a lot of everything.
Covered. That's it, man. Like Kiefer Sherwood was my my heart's number one pick. I went with my head, I think, this week, or something maybe, I don't know, backwards. But I picked my second guy. I'm doing the Costanza technique. I'm trying that out. But that's it for this episode, guys. I hope you guys are digging it. We got the quarter one results and I don't know, profit seminar or whatever we're doing on Tuesday. It's going to be a shit ton of fun.
The shareholder report.
I'm going to be wearing a three-piece suit, so I hope you guys are digging it and are there for that one. I might even comb my hair. We'll see what happens. That's it. You guys can find us in the Discord. You can find us on Twitter at FHF Hockey. We're here on the YouTube. Throw us some likes, throw us some subs, and as soon as we get to 1,000, we'll be able to do more with our YouTube, and we're looking forward to that. So that's it for us, guys, and we'll cue the outro music. Where is it? There we go. And until next time, we'll catch you next time. Love you.
Love you.